Natalia enters the church and sits in the back pew. Sunny assures Carly that he will handle it, saunters over, and informs Natalia that they should speak outside. Natalia agrees and they go. Sasha enters the chapel with Daisy, Joss, Amelia, and Wiley. As everyone waits for Sunny to return, Wiley inquires whether they are also waiting for Mommy, but Michael responds that she will not arrive today. Brooklyn gets Chase aside and asks if he knows why Natalia is here, and why he remained silent when she told him about the filthy investment. Chase is unable to discuss this with her. Outside the chapel, Sunny informs Natalia that she is unable to attend. She assumed he was meant to be on the plane with her to Belize. He says that he is preparing her for a new life and will keep an eye on her safety, but his life has arrived, and he apologizes for any uncertainty. Sunny claims to have provided her with everything she needs. Natalia sobs, except friends and family. Christina rushes out to inform her father that the service is about to begin. Sunny wants his man to take Natalia to her hotel and make sure she gets on the aircraft. Natalia wishes Sunny and his family every blessing they deserve. The christening goes on. Sunny returns to the church, the service begins, and Mac eventually arrives. Sasha discloses the complete name of their kid, Daisy Celeste, and the father baptizes her. The entire family gathers for a snapshot. After that, Michael invites everyone back to the Quartermain mansion, where the family begins to disperse. Carly follows up with Sunny regarding Natalia, while Christina does the same with Jason. Both men claim Natalia has been handled. Brooklyn finds Chase in a hallway and calls Turner to tell that Natalia just arrived to Sunny's granddaughter's baptism and then left. Brooklyn is perplexed by her husband's recent actions. He claims he was on a work call and she shouldn't have listened in. He warns her that his work may include individuals she knows, and they resolve not to let it affect them and establish boundaries. She only wants to know what's going on with Sunny and Natalia. Chase is frustrated and says he can't talk about it. She declares her love for him, and he reciprocates. They kiss and he goes to the station. A romantic dinner. Lucas and Marcus decide to prepare dinner together at Carly's house. Lucas purchased all of the supplies but lost the recipe he found online, so Marco proposes they improvise. Lucas claims he isn't a good cook. He doesn't cook, he just heats stuff up. Marco knows how to cook, and he used to do it with his mother before things fell apart between them. Marco saves the meal and they kiss during supper. Portia plays Jordan and Curtis. At Aurora, Portia and Curtis are having fun in his office when Jordan walks in. She is surprised, apologizes, and goes away. Curtis realizes Portia set everything up. She admits, "I sure as hell did." Curtis believes she was finished with the plans and falsehoods. Portia wonders if he is unhappy because of her plot, or because Jordan witnessed him kissing his wife. Curtis wonders if any of that was real, or if it was all a setup for show. Portia claims everything she told him was true, and Jordan needed to see them together. She informs Curtis that Jordan wants him back, and she needs to know that it will not happen now or ever. Curtis informs Portia that whatever feelings she has toward him and Jordan are all in her brain. Portia doesn't think so, and she's seen them sneaking away and talking privately. Curtis tells her that the talks were about her being blackmailed by Drew, and her guilt is driving this story. Portia claims they're struggling, and Jordan notices it. She's attempting to use his vulnerability. Curtis comments that it does not sound like Jordan but more like Portia. Portia emphasizes that if he believes she exploited the flaws in his marriage with Jordan, he should tell her. Curtis claims he does not blame her for the breakdown of his marriage, but he is unsure of her current activities. Portia did what she did to salvage their marriage, but Curtis says she's ruining it. Curtis warns Portia that her lies and stunts are simply dragging them apart. Regardless of all he tries to assure her and Trina's safety, she continues to doubt him. Portia claims, "Lord knows Jordan never lied." Curtis responds that Jordan lied about her job, not having a kid, and being blackmailed by an adversary. Curtis informs her that Jordan is not the main issue, the two of them are. Anna confronts Turner and advises Jordan. In Anna's office, she warns Turner that Sunny is intelligent and strategic. Turner claims Anna is as well, so either Sunny has been one step ahead of her the entire time, or she has been looking the other way. Anna claims they are on the same side, but if she wants to ruin her career by taking down Sunny, she won't be the first. Anna informs her that she can choose whether or not to cooperate with her. Anna informs Turner that she hasn't crossed the line yet, but cherry-picking her officers for investigations that she hasn't been informed about is something she would not tolerate. She warns her to be cautious about her actions. Jordan bursts in, apologizes, and admits she had no idea Anna was in a meeting. Anna claims the acting DA was just departing. Turner leaves, and Anna inquires whether Jordan saw Curtis. Jordan claims she did, with Portia on his desk battling. She believes she has played perfectly into Portia's hands and exclaims, "The bitch set me up." Regardless of her love for Curtis, she will not be held accountable for the dissolution of his marriage. However, Portia's games might. Jordan informs Anna that her feelings for Curtis are complicated, and she does not want them mixed up with Portia's problems. She hopes Curtis can find the tranquility he seeks, but given Portia's falsehoods, she doubts he would reconcile with her. Anna claims that it is Curtis' decision, and she must find a way to move forward. Anna asks what she requires. Natalia is a hot mess. Natalia is brought back to her metro courtroom. She informs Sonny's man that she needs to pack and take a shower, so he exits. Natalia begins to panic and finds some drugs to consume. She then takes the pills with whiskey. Natalia starts packing after her shower, but she takes more medications and drinks some booze. She recalls her disagreement with Sidwell over their son, and she blames him for turning Marco against her. She recalls Sonny's vow to provide her with a nice life in a lovely location, but his home is in Port Charles. Then she recalls Marco telling her that if she walks out and leaves the country, she will be worthless to him. She starts to text someone. Back at Carly's, Marco and Lucas clean up after their meal. When his phone rings, they start making out heavily. Marco claims it's his mother, and it's nonsense, implying she's probably inebriated. He claims that when she drinks, her texts transform into a word salad thanks to autocorrect. Lucas observes that the timing is peculiar as she is supposed to be leaving town. Lucas looks at Marco's phone, trying to figure out what Natalia is saying. Marco claims she'll leave him an apology message in the morning, but Lucas says she is leaving the country. Lucas says his mother is contacting him, and this may be his only chance to respond. Back in her room, Natalia checks her phone and notices that Marco has read her word salad, but has not responded. Sonny's men pounds on the door, saying they must leave. She calls back and says she's almost ready. She tries to text Marco an apology, but it gets muddled up due to her state. Quartermaines and more celebrate. Felicia and Carly at the Quartermaines are talking about Daisy. Felicia describes having a new grandchild as a blessing. Carly wishes her mother could have met her, but Felicia says she is with them in spirit. Sasha asks Jason if he wants to hold his goddaughter and hands her to him. Sasha asks, "What should I call him, Uncle Jason?" He claims Jason is okay. She appreciates him standing by her and watching out for them, despite her attempts to convince him to leave her alone. She knows he took a lot of heat, but he's a decent man and Daisy and she are fortunate to have him. Brooke Lynn leaves a note for Chase, indicating she is concerned about Natalia and Sonny. Christina enters and talks to Michael and Sonny before receiving a text. Her manager is sick, so she has go to Charlie's and open up. She says farewell to Sonny and Michael and departs. Two masked men break into Charlie's and pour gasoline everywhere. The text reads, "Subscribe to Soap's General Hospital newsletter. Get breaking news alerts, daily recaps, exclusive interviews and spoilers delivered directly to your inbox. https://cloud emailed@soaps.com/signup." During the show's final moments. In Curtis' office, Portia informs her husband that, whether he admits it or not, Jordan is the problem, and she needs to know they are married and have a family. Curtis' phone rings and it is Jordan. She claims she'll leave him to it, but she'll fight for their marriage. She inquires, "What about you?" Jordan is not in Anna's office anymore. Turner appears and advises Anna that if she wants to create trust, she should issue an APB against Natalia. She is set to leave town, and she is their best chance of taking down Corinthos. Lucas blows out the candles at Carly's romantic dinner. Marco's gone. Natalia stumbles around her room, checks her phone, and realizes Marco has not responded. She eventually collapses on the sofa and passes out. She misses Marco finally responding to her messages. Christina enters inside Charlie's and makes her way behind the bar. She glances around and sees the gas on the floor. Suddenly, a Molotov cocktail is thrown through the window, starting a fire. Natalia had always been the type of woman who could keep herself together, even while everything inside her was crumbling. The walls she created were exquisite, polished, and appealing, serving as a distraction from the agony she rarely recognized, even to herself. But recently that facade began to break. There were too many secrets, betrayals, and an increasingly deafening silence between her and the people she loved. It began with the drugs. They were not supposed to be dangerous, simply something to take the edge off. A doctor prescribed it without asking too many questions, and it was filled at a drugstore that didn't blink twice. She took one to sleep and one to wake up. Then one has to get through the vast, gnawing gaps between. She didn't intend to go so far when she coupled them with whiskey that night. But the agony inside of her demanded to be relieved, and she wasn't in the mood to be cautious. She was alone in her flat when she felt the room tilt. At first, she assumed it was just the alcohol catching up with her, but then the buzzing in her ears became louder, her eyesight narrowed, and her legs folded beneath her. She collapsed to the floor like a puppet whose ropes had been cut. Her breathing was shallow, and her chest rose and fell in an inconsistent rhythm. The phone was only inches away from her hand, but she couldn't reach it. Darkness crept in slowly, like a rising flood around her. Meanwhile, across town, Charlie's pub was crowded with Friday night regulars. The air was alive with laughing, music, and the clinking of glasses. No one suspected anything. Not about Natalia. Not about what was coming. Christina had just emerged from the back room, drying her hands, when she observed a man in a hoodie lingering at the door. Something about him didn't seem right. She proceeded to approach him, and suddenly the explosion occurred. The firebomb detonated against the side of Charlie's, rocking the entire structure. Windows broke inward, and a wall of heat rushed through the pub with a roar that took everyone's breath away. Flames licked the air, hungry and untamed. Screams followed, including calls for aid and cries of panic. Christina was flung to the floor, and a table smashed alongside her. The smoke hit hard and fast, quickly engulfing the area with thick black clouds. Someone dragged her to her feet, choking and screaming for the exits. In the midst of the chaos, no one noticed Natalia had not answered her phone all night. Not even Sonny. He'd become distracted, drawn into another territorial dispute with Cyrus. His thoughts were focused on allegiance, control, and maintaining peace amid his empire's fragmented pieces. However, he always noticed eventually. When he did, it struck him like a gut strike. He called and then texted. No response. He instructed someone to knock on her door. When they did not receive an answer, they broke in. Natalia was still on the floor. Unconscious. I can barely breathe. A bottle of whiskey was half spilled on the rug beside her, and pill bottles lay open like lost ideas. Paramedics arrived quickly. She was transported to General Hospital, her life hanging in the balance. They pumped her stomach. They connected her to machines. She was only barely stabilized. The attending nurse muttered the terms intentional overdose and possible alcohol poisoning to a doctor nearby. But no one knew whether she intended to die, or they simply couldn't take it any longer. Word spread immediately. Ava learned about it while watching the news report of Charlie's hit. Her hands trembled as she watched the tavern enveloped by fire. Not only was the wreckage horrible, but Natalia had planned to visit later. If she hadn't passed out, she could have walked right into the inferno. Ava clutched the edge of her kitchen counter, torn between relief and terror. What had motivated Natalia to do this? Jason too learned about the fire first. Then Natalia. The two occurrences hit him in waves, one after the other, until he felt as if the ground beneath him was unstable. He had always protected those dear to him. That was his job. His code. What about Natalia? She'd slipped past his barriers. Not simply because she was Sonny's girlfriend, but she had a brightness about her that reminded him of what he had lost within himself. Now the light was wavering dangerously near to turning out. Willow stood by Natalia's hospital bedside. The monitors beeped continuously, but Natalia appeared pale and weak under the sheets. Willow didn't know her well, but she had witnessed enough sadness in her life to recognize a woman on the verge. She reached out her hand, not expecting a reaction but offering something genuine nonetheless. Michael arrived not long after. He just left the courts, the weight of legal fights still on his shoulders. When he learned about Natalia, the numbness he had been carrying snapped. He remembered how she used to smile at him across Sunny's kitchen table, warm and welcoming. He recalls her laughter ringing through the corridors when she thought no one was listening. This portrayal of her, broken and silent, was a blow to the soul. While the hospital waited its breath for Natalia, law officers descended on Charlie's. The arson was deliberate. The evidence was apparent. Glass fragments from a Molotov cocktail, traces of accelerants, and many eyewitnesses who claimed to have seen the man in the hoodie depart moments before the fire broke out. Nobody claimed culpability, but everyone had suspicions. Cyrus, perhaps someone from Pikeman, or perhaps a rogue element within Sunny's group attempting to convey a message. Christina, despite being scared and injured, issued a statement. Her voice wavered, but her will did not. She sought justice. Not just for Charlie, but for the sense of security that had been taken away. She sat with Blaze later that night, wrapped in a blanket and sipping tea with shaky hands. Blaze pulled Christina's hair away from her forehead, mumbling reassurances, but both knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of something much more dangerous. Back in Natalia's room she moved. Slowly. Her fingers twitched and her eyes flickered. Willow saw first and contacted the nurse. Natalia regained consciousness moments later, but was bewildered. Her throat was burning and her head throbbed. She attempted to speak, but could only manage a whisper. She couldn't remember collapsing. The pills. The whiskey. It returned in parts like shards from a nightmare. Shame followed close behind. Sunny came at her bedside shortly after sunrise. His face was etched with concern, tiredness, and something deeper. Guilt. He sat silently for a time before taking her hand. "You scared me," he replied simply. She could not meet his gaze. The quiet between them was full with unspoken facts. She finally murmured, "I didn't mean to," before trailing off. He gripped her hand. "But you did." Not with accusation but with hurt. It was the kind of pain that comes from witnessing someone you care about slip away and realize you weren't prepared for it. Outside the room, Dante paced the corridor. He was absorbing everything, the firebomb, Natalia's overdose, and the likelihood of additional violence. He was a cop, but he was also Sunny's kid, and the dichotomy had never felt more difficult to reconcile. If the attack on Charlie's was related to Sunny's reality, revenge was unavoidable. But if it was somehow related to Natalia, things would be even uglier than he had imagined. Later that day, while medics checked Natalia's vital signs and assessed her mental state, she remained haunted. Not by death, but by recognizing that she had almost embraced it. That somewhere along the process, she began to feel that disappearing would be simpler than confronting the pain. But now she had to confront it. The pills. The act of drinking. The vacuum within her. No more pretending. Christina arrived that evening. Her face was bruised, and her eyes were filled with tiredness, yet she smiled regardless. "You're still here," she murmured, and Natalia nodded softly. "Yeah, I think I am." The two women sat quietly, their shared pain serving as a bridge between them. No platitudes or promises. It's just presence. And when night descended again over Port Charles, one thing became clear. Natalia's breakdown was more than just a personal tragedy. It was a warning sign. The firebombing of Charlie's was not a random act of violence. It was a declaration of war. Lives were changing, alliances were dissolving, and darkness was drawing closer than anybody wanted to accept. The citizens of Port Charles had gone through hell before, but this time the damage might be more severe. And Natalia? She'd have to rise from the ashes if she could, and decide who she wanted to be on the other side of rock bottom. General Hospital teasers indicate that a preview clip has been published for Wednesday, July 2, 2025. It suggests that Marco Rios may be in great danger. Jocelyn Jacks makes a declaration. Tracy Quartermain also schemes. Continue reading to learn more about what will happen in today's episode of ABC Soap Drama. Let us begin with Jocelyn, who makes a declaration to Vaughn. The fresh WSB agent complains to her handler about Sonny Corinthos causing death wherever he goes. The two are still in Charlie's pub, where the fire broke out. Even though Christina Corinthos Davis survived, Joss will blame her old stepfather, as she always does. The expression on Bryce's face is intriguing. He conveys a great deal of empathy to Joss without saying anything. I'm wondering if this will lead to a relationship between the two. Sonny Corinthos damage control. Sonny is struggling with both the fire at Charlie's pub and the problem with Natalia Ramirez. In a teaser clip from today's episode, Sonny has a heated conversation with Jason Morgan. The mob boss tells his right-hand guy that if Marco becomes collateral damage, so be it. Marco saved Christina, so it's reasonable that Sonny is skeptical. After all, Marco's timing and the fact that he is Jen Sidwell's son could come back to bother him. Lucas Jones's discovery. According to General Hospital teasers for Wednesday, July 2nd, Lucas and Marco will have a heart-to-heart in the hospital. Even though they have only recently started dating, Lucas is concerned about the lawyer. Not only did he rescue a woman's life, but he also confronted his dead mother. It's a lot for anyone to handle, especially in one evening. Marco admits to his love interest that this isn't the whole tale. What else can we expect in the next episode? Tracy schemes with Brooklyn Quartermain. In a preview clip, Tracy expresses her dissatisfaction with being right. Meanwhile, Anna Devane is staring at a tablet. The commissioner tells Harrison Chase that she is reviewing security footage. Anna isn't looking up, so perhaps she's onto something. Will there be a clue, and what does it entail for the characters' futures? Which narrative are you most looking forward to witnessing on Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025? Share your opinions in the comments area below. Remember to keep watching ABC's soap opera to see what happens next. Make sure to keep up on everything going on with GH right now. Check back regularly for General Hospital spoilers, news, and updates. Tracy Quartermain was usually 5 steps ahead of everyone, and as the weeks passed in Port Charles, she found herself once more playing a perilous game. The stakes had never been higher, not only for her legacy, but also for her family's existence. Marco, a name she rarely pronounced aloud and even less comprehended, had become a quiet presence over every decision she made. Tracy had spent years establishing power, fortune, and reputation. Now it appeared that all of this could be undone by one individual who knew much too much. Marco's presence at Port Charles was both strategic and sinister. He wasn't there to exact revenge, at least not in the classic sense. He had a specific reason for returning, and it was related to a decades-old deal involving Tracy and the late Edward Quartermain. The farther Tracy looked into the past, the more she realized how perilous her position had become. Marco was charming and charismatic, but underlying his polished facade was a guy who did not forgive easily. And now he was circling like a vulture, waiting for the Quartermain matriarch to fall. Tracy was also busy behind the scenes, doing her regular pranks. She was keeping an eye on a few key personalities in town, each of whom was useful in their own way. She was forcing Ned to take a more aggressive approach in ELQ, urging him to acquire contracts that would edge out Valentine and neutralize Drew. She knew Drew had his own secrets, which he shared with Sonny and Jason, and Tracy wasn't ready to give that trio the upper hand. But Marco hovered in the background, an uncontrollable silent variable. Tracy's focus wasn't limited to the corporate battlefield. She was quietly organizing maneuvers within the hospital board, influencing appointments and dismissals to solidify her power. She ensured that certain initiatives received finance, while others suddenly stalled. Every decision she made was exact, with plausible deniability. However, with Marco sniffing around, there was always a risk. If he pulled the wrong curtain, everything may come crashing down. Meanwhile, across town, Jocelyn Jacks was unraveling. What began as a gradual buildup of tension over the previous few months had reached a boiling point. Her relationship with Dex was strained, her faith in her mother was shaken, and her worldview was shifting in dangerous directions. Jocelyn had always been stubborn, but her resistance now bordered on recklessness. The more people advised her to calm down and think clearly, the more determined she grew to assert herself. As a result, she was endangering the people she cared about. The turning point came when Jocelyn uncovered a series of encrypted texts on Dalton's phone, referencing shipments, meeting spots, and a name she had never heard before, Marco. She couldn't unsee it. She had only glanced at the phone momentarily while Dalton was preoccupied, but it was enough to start a fire within her. She had never trusted Dalton, but now she sensed something much more frightening. The name Marco didn't simply sound menacing. It felt like a puzzle piece fitting into place. Suddenly, Sunny's cryptic warnings, Jason's arrival, and Carly's tight-lipped demeanor all made sense, terrifying her. Instead of discussing her problems with the family, Jocelyn did what she always did when overwhelmed. She acted alone. She attacked Dalton in a passion, accusing him of lying to her and being a part of something dirty. Dalton, as charming as usual, dismissed her with vague denials, but Jocelyn didn't buy it. Her meltdown was explosive. Screaming, crying, and knocking over furniture, it was no longer about Dalton. It was about being lied to and treated as a child in a world where everyone else made the decisions. Carly tried to intervene, but it only made matters worse. Jocelyn accused her mother of concealing the truth and being involved in whatever web was being spun around them. Carly attempted to explain that there were things Jocelyn didn't comprehend, things she couldn't understand without being in the thick of it, but this simply stoked the flames. Jocelyn needed answers, not ambiguous assurances. When Carly refused to give them, Jocelyn stormed out and slammed the door behind her. Tracy, observing from the sidelines, saw potential in the pandemonium. She had always viewed Jocelyn as emotional and naive, but now she saw someone desperate enough to dig, question, and turn over stones that should be buried. Tracy approached Jocelyn in her own unique way, making a discreet offer through intermediaries, knowing she could accept the bait. If she did, Tracy would be prepared. Christina enters Charlie's back entry and finds the gas on the floor, just as a Molotov drink is hurled through the window. Alexis meets with Sidwell. Sidwell speaks to someone on the phone from the parapet at Windmere and reports that the task has been completed. He walks inside and Alexis has arrived to greet him. She has questions regarding all of the products he will be importing, but he assumed Marco would handle this. She says that Marco is a new associate, and she and Diane always supervise new associates and their customers for the first 6 months. Sidwell believes this is a waste of time, and that Marco is being scrutinized because he is his son. Alexis notes his problem and begins discussing some of her issues in his contract with the local dock authority. She has marked various pages that concern her. At the hospital, Liz speaks with Isaiah, who is covering Portia's for the evening. Liz is relieved, as Portia has been here far too often lately. Later, Isaiah notices Liz staring at a photo of Lucky on her phone. It's from Aiden, and it shows Lucky hanging from the side of a cliff. Liz thinks her son is having a good time with his father. Marco sees the fire. Marco calls Lucas when he is cleaning up Carly's apartment. Marco is in his car and has not heard anything from his mother. Suddenly he says, "What the hell?" He informs Lucas that he needs to call him back. Joss arrives at Carly's and engages Lucas in conversation. She's there to give Trina and Kai some alone time. Lucas tells her about his meal with Marco, and how there are leftovers in the refrigerator. Joss updates her uncle on the christening and the situation with Natalia. Daisy's party is coming to an end. The majority of the Quartermain family has departed their home. Carly offers that Sasha take Daisy up to the nursery because she appears exhausted, but Sasha prefers to keep Daisy with her in her bassinet. In the entryway, Michael thanks Sunny for assisting him with putting the kids to bed. Jason appears to speak with Sunny before pulling him aside. There comes a knock at the door and Michael answers it. It is Molly, who is late due to court. Michael invites her in and informs her that there are a few people remaining, but Christina had to go to open Charlie's. Meanwhile, Jason informs Sunny that Natalia has not arrived at the airfield yet. Marco rescues Christina. Back at Charlie's, Christina attempts to extinguish the fire with a fire extinguisher. However, it becomes out of control, and she begins to scream for help. Marco kicks in the front door to check who is there, and Christina begs for aid. When Marco enters, she informs him that she is the only one present. He grabs a tarp, and they cover themselves before leaving out the back door. Outside Charlie's, Marco and Christina escape safely as Dante arrives and checks on his sister before inquiring what happened. Christina gasps, "Someone attempted to kill me." News of the fire spreads. At the Q&A session, Jason and the others enter the living room, and Carly asks Jason if he asked Sunny about Natalia's appearance today. Jason did, but he cannot tell her what is going on. Sunny discusses parenting with Michael, who wants to ensure that his children receive the same kind of attention that Sunny did. Sunny feels delighted to be his father, and they exchange a heartfelt embrace.